Welcome back to the ProBody Lifestyle Podcast. I am your host, Janos Prochuk, and I'm here together with my amazing wife, Melissa Prochuk.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast.
Now, we've had an exciting day today. Number one, we're going to be talking about muscle growth. So we're super excited for that. But more than that, we actually just got back from our, what scan was this?
26-week scan of our baby, which our baby has grown so much in the last 3 weeks, and
Yes.
I'm definitely feeling it.
How much has our baby grown?
300 grams, which you may be
Of
like...
pure muscle.
Yeah. You may be thinking, oh, that's nothing. But I said to Janusz before this scan, I'm like, wow, I feel as though baby is taking up so much more space, and I'm feeling the movement so much more in these last few weeks, which I love. But oh my goodness, in this last week, in particular, I am so tired. So anyone who's been pregnant before, you will know that you have those random days where it just feels next level exhaustion that I can't even describe. And I'm definitely having one of those days today. So thank God we got to see baby, because it always puts me in the best mood, just seeing how healthy our baby's growing. We feel so grateful.
Yeah.
And also because it's putting on weight and we're like,
Yeah.
it's
Well,
strong.
I mean, to put on 300 grams in 3 weeks is insane.
Apparently,
so no
in the
wonder
end,
you're this tired, because
but apparently in the
it's
end,
growing a
it
lot.
puts on 200 grams a week. I could be so wrong. Do not quote me.
Yeah.
But that's pretty wild to think about.
No. So we thought that would segue great into this podcast, because inspired by our baby, today is all about how to build muscle. So a lot of us right now, it's winter in Australia. It's coming out of winter. We're about to hit August, and we've got a new challenge that we're about to do. So we'll talk about that a little bit later if you want to join us. But basically, a lot of you guys throughout winter, you're eating extra calories, and this is the time where you can use those extra calories to build more muscle. But you need to know how. Because otherwise, there's so many people who go to the gym and they're just running a hope plan, trying to essentially just hope that what they're doing is going to lead to muscle growth.
Yeah.
And it's not quite as simple as most people think. So we thought that today we'd go through the 3 main principles for muscle growth. We'll talk a little bit about the role of protein in muscle growth, because that's a bit misunderstood. And we'll also talk about our favorite splits that we like to follow. And what we mean by splits is how to break up your training throughout the week to, number one, suit your week, but to be able to build muscle even if you can only train 2 days a week, all the way up to if you want to train 6 days a week.
Yeah, and I think this podcast is just going to bring everything back to basics, which if you do the basics well and do them consistently, you will get results. And I feel like when people start reading into things too much and start to hear what their friends are doing and look into what all different coaches are doing, they get confused. They stop coming back to these 3 basic principles, which I would say, and we both say, are the most important. So I'm excited just to keep this podcast straight to the point, straight to the facts of how to build muscle and how to do it efficiently and how to do it in a way where you don't feel like, you're confused and you're overwhelmed by all the information.
Yeah, it reminds me of a great quote that a master in anything, they never stop doing the basics. They never stop doing the foundations. They simply build on them. And so this is something that I see a lot of people get confused with building muscle, with trying to lose fat, is that they see all of these things online, and then there's lots of different principles that they need to follow, and they get confused because they're trying to do everything. Where the funny thing is, if you just focus on what we're going to go through today and you just nail the basics and the foundations, then everything else you see online you can use, but as long as you don't stop doing what we talk about today.
Yep.
If you stop doing these things, then no matter what advanced strategy you try and do, you've forgotten the basics, you've forgotten the foundations, so you're not going to be able to build because you haven't got strong foundations.
Agreed. Well, let's get into the first principle.
Let's get into it. So I thought we'd talk about the role of protein for building muscle first, because I think that this is something where people think, oh, I'll just start eating more protein and that'll lead to muscle growth, right?
Yeah, well, people also think, oh, wow, I'll just have one of those protein yogurts and I'll build muscle. And it's like, it's one ingredient in the recipe,
Yes.
but you need to do this ingredient well, but there are so many other factors. But let's start with this
And it's
ingredient
not the main
first.
thing.
No, it's not.
Right? So what is protein? Protein is the building blocks to rebuild your muscles. But having building blocks to rebuild your muscles, if you're not training, if you're not stimulating muscle growth in the gym, so what happens when you train, you break down your muscle fibers a little bit. So you've probably heard that when you train, you're getting little micro tears in your muscles, which is why it hurts when you train.
But that's what we want.
But then that's where if you have protein after your workouts, or you have enough protein, you don't have to eat it after your workouts, but as long as you have enough protein throughout your days, then your body will use those proteins as building blocks. So the amino acids, which gets broken down from protein, then gets used to rebuild your muscular tissue.
Yeah.
But people forget that you have to train first to then use those building blocks to rebuild your body.
Yes,
you can't just eat protein on its own.
Yeah, it's just not about eating protein and going, oh, wow, this is going to help me build muscle. This is the ingredient that helps rebuild the muscle fibers that you've torn in the gym.
Yes.
Like you need to actually tear those muscle fibers first and have enough protein in your system for the whole cycle to actually occur.
Yes. So the range that you need to eat, because this is another part that people get really confused with, is it's not actually, number one, it's not the main thing, but the amount you want to have is a minimum amount per day. So we want to get between 1.6 all the way up to 2.5 times your body weight in grams of protein.
Yes.
Okay. Now, it's the opposite of what you think. So if you're dieting, you actually need more protein. Then when you're trying to bulk, you can actually get away on the lower end of that spectrum, more in that 1.6 grams. Now, if we do a very simple math for this one, for the sake of this podcast, because you're listening, if we go between the middle of it, right? So remember 1.6 all the way up to 2.5 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. Now, because some people are very overweight and they've got a lot of weight to lose, if that's you, I like to recommend that people go off their goal body weight instead. So if you're like 150 kilos, and if we're just going to do 2 times your body weight in grams of protein, if you're 100 kilos, then that's going to be 2 times your body weight, would be 100 grams of protein as a minimum to aim for. But let's say if your goal was to go from, you're a 200 kilo male, and you want to drop down to 80 kilos as your goal, then you would use that as your target. And so 2 times your goal body weight, which is 80 kilos, so 80 times 2, that would give you 160. That means you have 160 grams of protein is your daily goal as a minimum. Of course, you can eat more than that, but that's your minimum that you want to be aiming for. And like I said, if you're dieting, you might want to go beyond that, all the way up to 2.5 times your goal body weight that you're aiming for in grams of protein. Or if you're in a surplus, meaning you've got more calories coming in, then you can get away with the lower end of the spectrum, which is just 1.6 times your goal body weight in grams of protein.
Yeah, and the reason why you can get away with it is because remember, when you're bulking, you're already going to be eating more calories, you're fuller, and we're trying to eat more calories. Like that's the whole purpose of adding more carbs into your diet. So if you're having a lot of protein, because protein's so satiating and it fills you up so quickly, we don't want to be getting to the point where we can't eat the recommended amount of calories that we need to. So that's why going that lower end is always best. Another thing to remember with protein is remembering it's just like calories, and it's not a daily occurrence that resets every single day. Remember, it's a weekly average of what you're having, right? So like if I eat under my protein on one day or over my protein on the next day, you still have the next day to kind of make up that balance, just like you do with your calories, and budget it out. So don't feel as though, I know some of my clients sometimes are like, oh Mel, oh no, I accidentally went 40 grams over. I'm like, that's okay. We're going to go 40 grams under the next day. Yes, you would have felt very full on the day you had 40 grams more protein. Maybe your digestive system isn't working as well that day because you had so much protein, but it's about that weekly average as well. Just something to remember. So you're not thinking, oh my goodness, how am I supposed to get 140 grams or whatever it is per day? Some days it may be harder, especially on the weekends when you find that maybe your diet changes and you're not getting maybe your breakfast in that you usually get that has really high protein. So that's why if you do have a little bit extra throughout the week, it saves you a little bit on the weekend.
Yeah. And a lot of people also ask us about timing. Like, oh, when should I have my protein? Like, what's important with that?
Well, I feel like that myth was floating around probably a good 5 years ago about the 30-minute window.
Yeah. So for most things, the quantity matters way more than the timing of when you're having those things. Because if you've got the right quantity of protein in your body, then your body is digesting that while you're sleeping. It's got that in your body, and it can now release it into your body to repair all the muscle tissue that it needs. Where there's issues is not so much when people are timing it wrong, but it's when they're not hitting the right quantity for the day. So if you're not hitting those minimums of 1.6 grams of protein per kilo of body weight, that's where you're not going to have enough protein to be able to rebuild the muscle tissue in the most effective way.
Yeah. And we see this a lot. I see this a lot with a lot of female clients that come to us. And they say they've been training for years. They actually train really hard. When I see how they train and what weights they're pushing, I'm like, wow, your body should look a little bit different to with the way that you are training and the intensity that you're going at. And then we come back to protein and we look, and they're probably only having 1 times their body weight, and it's not enough to rebuild those muscle fibers.
Yeah. No, exactly. And what we were saying before, yes, we did say it correctly. When you're bulking, when you're eating extra calories, you can go with the lower end of the range, around that 1.6 to about 2 times your body weight.
That's what I'm doing right now.
But it's the opposite. When you're cutting, when you're in a calorie deficit, it basically means your body's not getting enough energy because you're trying to diet, you're trying to lose body fat. So because you're trying to lose body fat, your body is in this state where your metabolism requires a certain number of energy to run your body. And you're eating a calorie deficit, meaning you're not eating enough energy to give your body the opportunity to use your stored energy, which is your body fat. But what happens is your body's like, oh no, well, maybe I should lower my metabolism just in case. Maybe I should do that by offloading my muscle tissue. But if you don't want to lose muscle, if you are dieting, that's why when you're in a deficit, when you're dieting, it's more important to go for the higher end of that range versus when you're bulking. Because when you're bulking, your body isn't trying to get rid of your muscle. It's like, oh, well, I've got enough calories coming in. I can keep the muscle around. There's no fight or flight
going on. Yeah.
Right. Where when I'm in a calorie deficit, it means you're deficient in calories. You're not eating enough food and energy to maintain your current body mass, which is why you're losing fat, which is a good thing. But then your body's trying to get rid of muscle mass. And that's why in a calorie deficit, you need to be aiming for around 2 grams up to 2.5 grams of protein per kilogram of your body weight in the calorie deficit. So we did say that correctly. A lot of people were like, oh, don't you mean you should aim for the higher end when you're bulking and aim for the lower end when you're cutting? But no, it's actually the opposite, because when you're cutting, your body's trying to get rid of muscle if it can, if you're not eating enough protein and you're not doing the right strength training principles, which we're about to go into.
Yeah. And remember, before we jump into the next section, is when you're in a deficit, you are going to be hungry. So the more protein you're having, the less hunger you are going to have, because protein is the most satiating macronutrient. So that's something to consider as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely makes you feel a lot fuller.
Yes.
And it's very hard to do. Yeah.
Another point, this could be a whole other podcast episode, but I find over the years, I've switched from just like, in my early 20s, my protein sources were like protein cookies, protein bars, all those kind of things. And when I switched to making sure that my main source of protein is from lean sources of natural protein, like your meats, your eggs, your Greek yogurts, things like that, the difference in, first of all, being able to hit my calories well in a deficit was so much easier. But then also the way that my body digests that protein was so much easier as well. Instead of having 50 ingredients in a cookie of protein, where it's not much protein but very high calories, my body was able to digest one ingredient, which is like a chicken breast, and get way more protein out of that and not have to work as hard.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where if you can, this is why we love our clients tracking calories, to learn about nutrition and learn, because the only way you're going to know if you're hitting the right grams of protein per day is if you track it. Otherwise, you're just guessing. So that's number one. But number two, as you're saying, it is better to eat the protein from normal whole food sources, like if you're eating meats, if you're eating eggs, those types of things. Because when you're eating artificial protein sources, there's nothing scary or wrong about that, right? All they're doing is they're basically digesting the food for you, getting rid of the carbs and the fats from it, getting rid of the liquid so that you're only left with the powdered form of protein, and then you're eating that. But because it's done all the digestion for you, it's not going to keep you as full as if you ate the same amount of protein from a steak, because your body has to go through a lot more digestion and a lot more of a longer process to go through that digestion and put it into your stomach, digest it, get the amino acids out of that protein to then be able to use it. So if you can eat it using whole foods and normal food sources rather than supplements, then that's better. But if you do that and you notice that you're constantly low in your protein, then that's when you use a supplement, right, to supplement your diet to help you bump up your protein goals to hit those minimums.
Yep. I think we talked about that really well.
Yes.
Hopefully we should go to the next section.
Remember, just finishing on the nutrition, that part is the smallest part of what we're talking about in this podcast, all right? So nailing your protein is not going to build any muscle. It's just going to stop you losing muscle.
It's like the cement between bricks when you're building a house. Like you've got the bricks, which is the training.
Well, no, I mean... Okay, I use this analogy a little different to you.
Okay, how do you do? I'll say how I use it. Where the cement holds everything together, builds the house, right? But without the cement, the bricks are just going to kind of be unstable and not build it back stronger.
Okay, yeah. So, see, I say a very similar version of that analogy. So, to me, I say that the protein is the building blocks. It's your bricks.
That's what I just said.
No. But this is where it's different,
I said the cement.
Right. So your training is you actually laying the bricks and putting them together to build the house. So if you just have a ton of bricks, you've just got a pile of bricks. You haven't got a good house. Whereas if you have the bricks, which is the protein, you have enough protein, but then you also add the training, then that's where you can use those bricks that you're eating and you don't just poop out the protein again, but you then use it in your training to be able to rebuild the body.
I like it. I like my version too. So we'll go with
no,
both.
they both work.
Now, the next part of making sure you're building muscle is coming back to the basics of the principles of training. Now, this is bringing us back to Year 12 PTHPE, those principles you learned in class if you did PE. I remember learning these and being like, ugh, whatever, like these don't matter. But honestly, when people ask me specifically, like, how did you build glutes? Like back in 2023, I had a season where I built my glutes for a tall girl in a really great way, I would say. And these were the principles I followed, and I still follow them now with all of my training, and so does Janos and all of the clients of ours that do really well. And it's just coming back to these 3 principles, but being consistent with them as well.
And when we look and analyze people's training programs, when they come to us after 2, 3, 4 years of training, they're like, hey, I've been training in the gym for 4 years and my body doesn't look like it. Why not?
Yes.
When we analyze their program and look at it, they're most likely, well, not most likely, they're always missing these 3 things.
Yes.
If you have these 3 things in your program, it will work.
Yep.
So let's get into them. What are the 3 main principles for muscle growth?
Yep. Now, the first one is intensity. Now, everyone thinks they're training hard, but you really need to get to the point of failure. Now, failure in our minds, we never want to actually fail in life, but the gym is the place to fail. If you're not getting your muscles to that point where you've only got about 2 reps left in the tank at the end of your sets, then you're not getting to the point where those muscle fibers are tearing as much as they possibly can.
Yeah. And one of my favorite quotes, and you probably know this from previous podcasts, is if it doesn't challenge you,
it won't change you.
It's not going to change you.
Yep,
because again,
exactly.
When you're wanting to build muscle, if you pick up the weights and you do the exercise, you do 10 reps and it was easy and you put it down, your muscles are going to talk to your brain and say, hey, that was easy. We don't need to build muscle because we can already do it.
Yeah.
So the whole point is to strain the muscle and damage the muscle, right? To do those micro tears by training within 2 reps of failure, or at least just push to failure with good technique.
Yeah.
So you don't have to fail to build muscle, but you have to be within 1 or 2 reps close to failure for it to be a stimulating set for muscle growth.
Yeah. If your last few reps look like your first reps, then you're not pushing yourself enough. And I know a mistake that a lot of my clients who have come to me, making their first 2 phases of training until I change it for them, is they do progressive overload. So they do increase their weights every week, but their intensity is still at 50% capacity on week 8 because they're thinking, oh, wow, I'm increasing my weight every week. This is awesome. But then I ask them, is it challenging? Are you actually getting to the point where, not that you're shaking, but you're getting to a point where you feel like, wow, I don't have much left in me when I leave the gym. They're like, oh, no, I don't get to that. That's embarrassing. I'm like, no, we have to get to that. So if you're at a stage where you think you're increasing your weights every week and you're like, wow, I'm doing really well, that's still great. But you could be 10 times, 20 times further ahead right now if you actually go, wait a second, I'm hip thrusting 50 kilos. Last week I did 47, but maybe the capacity I'm at right now to build muscle is actually at 90 kilos and I'm not even there yet. So maybe you need to be getting to that point where you're increasing quicker, or you just see if you can lift it or not.
Yeah. And this is how you know what weights to pick, right? Like when we're giving you a rep target to go for. So if we're telling you, I want you to do 8 to 12 reps, what that means is that for this set, you need to pick a weight that makes you fail, that you cannot do more than 12. You're not just stopping at a number between 8 and 12 reps. It means pick a weight that causes you to fail between 8 to 12. So you don't just stop at 12. It's physically because I couldn't do 13.
And you're like, oh, woohoo, got to 12, but you really could have got to 20.
Yeah. And so if you've got a program that has a rep range given to you, like do 8 to 12 reps, it means that once you can do more than the top number in the program, you're ready to increase the weights. If you can't do the bottom number in the program, let's say 8 reps, then it means you're using too heavy weight. You need to drop the weight a little bit for yourself. Yes. If you've got just like a single, like I know with some of your clients, you might just give them a single number to go for, like just do 8 reps.
And I'll say in their description, I'm like 8 reps in brackets. This means heavy.
Yes.
Because I don't want my clients getting to 8 and being like, oh, all done. Like I got to 8, thanks Mel.
But if they could have done 10 or 12, then do 10 or 12.
Yep,
but it
then means you can go up
increase
in weight.
And find the weight that makes you fail at 8.
Yes. A question I get a lot from especially new clients is, hey Mel, will I get the same results if I train at home? And I always bring them back to this principle of intensity because some people, you can definitely get results at home. Your body doesn't know where you are. Like if you're at a gym, you're at home, wherever you are, what apparatus you're using, right? It only knows, am I pushing to the point where my muscles are failing? So some of my clients who asked about gym, like home programs, they only have 2-3 kilo dumbbells. I'm like, yes, for your upper body, for some exercises, that will actually be challenging for the first few weeks. But after 5 to 6 weeks, it's not going to be challenging anymore. You're not going to be pushing to that intensity level unless you buy new dumbbells. So it just depends on the whatever weights or equipment that you have to do a workout. Is it actually pushing you to that failing point? If it's not, then this is where you need to ask yourself, do I need to buy equipment, or do I need to get a gym membership and feel confident to go there and use equipment that I can push myself to the limit?
Yep. And the other thing that people will do wrong is if they're doing 3 sets, they will have, most of the sets are just warm-up sets and they only do one hard one at the end.
I always write my clients know this. I'm like, complete 2 warm-up sets before these 3 working sets. They're like, oh man, that's 5 sets. I'm like, yep, exactly.
Right? Because for a single set of exercise to build muscle, what we're talking about here with the intensity is that the intensity of every set you do, that's not a warm-up set, that's a working set, the intensity of every set needs to push you to within 2 reps of failure.
Yep.
So this is where sometimes I'll have a client come in for a PT session with me and I'll tell them, they're like, how many reps should I do? I'm like, we're going to aim for 15. They'll get to 15 and I tell them, keep going. And they're like, but you said 15. I'm like, yeah, but you can do more. Like you can still do more. And so what I'm looking for is, I'm not looking for a certain rep number for them to do. Mm-hmm. I'm looking for the point where they push to failure or they're within 2 of failure.
Yep.
And the other thing is, when you first start training in the gym, you're not very good at estimating what 2 reps in the tank feels like. Like you think you have 2, but you're actually leaving 5 in the tank. Mm-hmm. So what I would recommend is actually push yourself really close to failure and leave only 1 if you're not sure about the exercise, right? Or get a spotter to help you out.
Yes.
So then you can start to build that confidence. But pushing yourself to the point with good technique, with a nice controlled tempo as you're training, pushing yourself really close to failure, it's something that most people aren't comfortable with. And again, we're trying to do that because if your muscles can already lift the weights you're lifting, they're not going to keep growing because they can already lift the weight. So what's the point in building muscle?
Yep.
We're trying to prove to the muscles that, hey, you're inadequate. We're pushing you to failure or within 2 reps of failure. So you have to grow.
Yeah.
Now,
I was just going to add one more point before we move on. I remember when I did grow my glutes a few years ago, I would get to the point where I was leaving my hip thrusts and I couldn't walk. I actually had to crawl out of the gym because my glutes were twitching. And that it was only if I got to that point that I was like, I have pushed myself to the failing point where I can't actually physically get up. I'm not saying you have to do this all the time, but I'm just telling you, if you want to get to the point, especially with a large muscle group like your glutes, and you want to grow your glutes if you're a female or a male, you do have to get to that point with most of your sets. Now, let's move on to the next principle.
Yeah. And the other thing is just audit yourself. Like if you're doing a set and you stop and you put the weight down and you're like, wait a second, Janosch, you didn't fail. You just put the weight down. Pick the weight back up and keep repping it out till you actually get to the point where you can't push out another good rep with good form anymore.
Well, look, it's good to get to the gym. And like a lot of my clients go, yeah, Mel, look at me. I got all 3 workouts done. I'm like, yes, finally. Okay, we've got to step 1. We're getting that consistency. But if you're not actually pushing yourself to that failing point, you're just going to stay the same. It's not just enough to get to the gym. You actually have to push yourself.
Yeah. And what people don't realize is we're telling you these principles in order of importance. So if you just do 1 really hard set to failure, that's better than the entire workout of easy exercises. Mm-hmm. Because if you're not pushing to failure, like within 2 reps of failure, like if you're leaving like 5 reps in the tank, like you stopped at 10, but you actually could have done 15 reps, that means you stopped with 5 reps in the tank.
Yeah.
Because you did 10, you could have done 5 more. So if you're doing that, essentially your entire workout was just warming up.
Yeah.
Because none of them were hard. None of them pushed your muscle to failure. So you would have been better going to the gym and just doing 1 exercise to actual failure and leaving.
Yeah.
You would get better results, which a lot of people don't realize.
Yeah.
So,
next principle.
Keep that first principle in mind. Train to failure or at least within 2 reps of failure.
Intensity. Now the second one.
The second one is how many of those types of sets should we do, which is called volume. So what we talk about with volume is we're measuring it as hard sets for each muscle that you want to grow.
Per week.
So on a weekly scale, to grow muscle, if you're just looking at the chest, you need to be doing between 10 to 20 hard sets, not easy ones, but hard sets close to failure per muscle that you want to grow. So if I'm looking at the chest, I'm then counting that person's program that's not getting results, and I'm counting how many sets of chest do they have per week.
Yep.
And then you want to accumulate between 10 to 20. Now, 10 is perfect to build muscle. 20 is better, okay?
Yes.
But 10 will still build muscle. But remember, if you're trying to add and do tons of them, you can't forget the first principle, which is that they only count as a hard set if it was within 1 to 2 reps of failure.
Yep.
So if you're not doing that, then push to failure first. But the number of failure sets you need to do per week, like for example, if you're trying to grow your glutes, you need to be doing at least 10 to 20 hard sets per muscle per week to grow.
Yeah, and I think people forget that that's what we do as a coach is when we're creating your programs, we're not just putting random exercises together.
No.
We're pretty much doing math equations going, okay, if they can only train 3 days a week, we're making sure that the muscle groups that we want to grow, which is most of your muscles, like, everywhere in the body, is we're making sure that, okay, the glutes, how many exercises are targeting the glutes in a really intense way? Great, 1, 2, and we're counting the sets that you're doing, right? But another thing to remember as well is people may think, oh my God, 10 to 20 sets, that's a lot per muscle group. For example, just the glutes or just the shoulders. You can choose exercises in your program that use multiple muscle groups. So that's why you'll see, a lot of compound movements, which means movements that use multiple muscle groups in one exercise. So for example, when you're doing a back squat, it's not just your quads that are working hard.
Yeah.
It's your glutes, it's your hamstrings assisting as well. It's your posterior chain, like the muscles in your back, like a lot is working. So you can tick off about 4 different muscle groups in one exercise.
Versus if you just chose a leg extension,
Yeah.
where you're only targeting the front of your legs, just the
That's
quads. Well, now, you got 3 sets for just your quads, but now you got to do 3 sets for every other exercise as well, every other muscle. So that's a great point. The more you do compound exercises where you're using multiple muscles at once, the more muscles you're able to build at once.
Yeah, like if you can actually train more than 3 to 4 days per week, I'm all for then going, okay, do your bicep curls, do your lateral raises, be very specific and do isolating exercises like that, which I do. But if you've only got like 2 or 3 sessions per week that you can get in, you've got to make sure that you're choosing those exercises that use multiple muscle groups. Otherwise, you're not going to get the amount of sets that you need per week and the volume to actually grow muscle.
Yeah. Now, again, we need to make sure that those are hard sets. So this isn't just saying, just do 10 to 20 sets per week per muscle and you're going to grow muscle. They need to be pushed to within 2 reps of failure for it to actually count. Otherwise, they're just warm-up sets and they don't count towards these. Now, the reason there's a range between 10 to 20, if you're doing at least 10, you will always be growing the muscle. Now, you can't do every muscle up at 20 because it's just going to take forever. So that's where what we'll do is we'll cycle in our clients' programs. We might prioritize shoulders as a specialization for that phase.
Yes.
And so shoulders might be up at that 20 hard sets per week.
Great point.
But then that's where we might back the chest back to 10 hard sets per week to kind of not maintain, because it's still going to grow, but it's just going to be less of a priority for this phase while we ramp up the shoulders to prevent injuries.
That's such a great
Then
point.
shoulders might back off in the next program that we create to 15 or 10, and then chest might start to ramp up from 10 up to 15 or 20 sets. So you can have phases where we generally, if you want to grow everything, you want everything to at least get 10 hard sets per week as a minimum. But then you can have specialization phases where you're going to prioritize a specific part of the body that you allow it to ramp up to that 15 and then ramping up to 20. Now, I wouldn't start with 20 because most people, if you're not used to training with intensity, you first need to do the first principle, which is just get used to doing 10 hard sets per week, pushing close to failure. Now, when we're talking about 10 hard sets, if we're going to look at an exercise for example, the chest, it doesn't mean it has to be the same exercise. So any exercise that hits the chest will contribute to this. So if I'm trying to get 10 hard sets for the chest in the week, let's say if I'm training 3 days a week, day 1, maybe I do bench press and I do 4 sets of bench press. Well, now I've got 4 hard sets as long as I push those all to within 2 reps of failure. Then Wednesday, maybe I do a machine chest press. So that's going to be another 4 sets of machine chest press. So now I've got 8 total for the week. And then maybe on the Friday, I'm going to do 3 sets of another chest exercise. Maybe it's just push-ups to failure, right? And so as long as all of those exercises are pushed close to failure within 2 reps of failure, then all of those sets are going to accumulate over the week to get me within that range of 10 to 20.
I just want to bring it back to that point you said before, because it was such a great point about how we distribute, wow, my mouth, the sets per muscle group, depending on what you want to grow per phase of training, because we'll ask all of our clients at the end of most phases, what area do you want to focus on in the next 6 to 8 week phase? And if they say, for example, I want to grow my glutes that little bit more, then we will go on that higher end. And I want our clients to really understand that, if you're listening, which you should be, because sometimes clients will be like, I just skipped this exercise, didn't want to do this, but then they've asked for extra glute. They want their glutes to be more defined to this phase, and we've added extra glutes in. And then they're like, oh, Mel, hip thrust again, or lunges. I don't want to do lunges. And it's like, yes, but this is what you asked for. And if you skip these sets, then we're just going to keep the exact same as we were before with every other muscle group. So I just love that you brought that up, because a lot of my clients sometimes challenge me and will be like, Mel, shoulder superset, this is killing me. But I'm like, you wanted your shoulders to pop more so you could wear that dress in October. So that's why we're doing the double shoulder superset. So it's just really good to remember this when you don't feel like doing something in your program. It's there for a reason. We don't just sprinkle things in for fun, even though sometimes I'm like, in my descriptions, like, sorry, like I'm a bit evil, but it's all there for a reason.
Yeah. And it's just reminding yourself too that you need to do principle 1, which is intensity. Push to within 2 reps of failure, or push to failure. So don't save energy because you're like, oh, well, I've got 3 chest exercises to do today, 3 glute exercises. I'll save energy and not push to failure on the first 2 exercises I'm doing. It's like, well, then you've just wasted your time and warmed up for the last exercise, right? So remember, you can't waste time. Like, I would rather you only do 1 exercise for a muscle and push with intensity than doing a workout with 5 of the same exercise, like 5 exercises for glutes, and not go hard in them because you're trying to save your energy.
Yeah.
So most important thing is push to failure or within 2 reps of failure. Second principle is to do 10 to 20 of those hard sets per week per muscle that you're trying to grow. And it can be different exercises. It just needs to be 10 to 20 hard sets per muscle. And the last one is the frequency. So you want to divide those 10 to 20 hard sets into at least 2 days for each muscle each week. So said another way is you want to make sure that you're training each muscle throughout the week at least twice.
Yes. No, so we'll go into it next about what split of training that you could follow.
Yeah.
But you always want to be making sure that you're coming back to a certain muscle group after at least a day's or 24 hours of rest, to challenge it not just once, but twice. And again, I'll bring the glutes back into the podcast as an example with a lot of females that come to us. And I look at their old programs and they're doing glutes once per week. They're training hard though. Like, they're pushing themselves. The intensity is there, but they're only doing it once per week. And then I'm like, if we add in that double, that's getting us there twice as faster.
Yeah. And it might not so when we got these 3 principles, right? We just talked about intensity, which is training to failure, is principle 1. Volume is how many hard sets per week they're doing, which is 10 to 20 hard sets per week. So maybe they're doing principle 1, they're training intensely. Maybe they're doing principle 2, which means they're doing enough hard sets per week, but they're shoving it all on one day. And so they're breaking the 3rd principle, which is frequency, which is hit each muscle at least 2 days per week.
Yep.
Now, I like to tell people that this is kind of like if you're trying to tan. Like, if you just went hard and you just did all of your hours for the week on one day and just did 10 hours in the sun, you would damage your body and you'd start peeling off. So what we're looking for with muscle growth is actually your ability to recover from the exercise you did, because you want to come to the gym, stimulate growth, then eat enough protein to recover from it and repair so that 2 days later you can stimulate growth again. Whereas if you throw all of the hard sets onto one day, it's kind of like
brushing your teeth. Brushing for the whole week in one day and being like, well, I brushed 7 times or 14 times if you do it twice a day in the first day on Monday, and then you don't brush it for the rest of the week.
Yeah, it's like, oh, well, I did all my minutes on Monday.
And it's like, it doesn't really work like that, because you need to have that process happening every single day or every 24 to 48 hours.
Yes. So especially if you're an athlete and you've got sport you're trying to do, then the goal is not to get as sore as possible. So you're not trying to have a leg day that is brutal, that you throw every single leg exercise in and that's it for the week, because then you can barely walk. What is smarter is, instead of let's say if you're aiming for that 20 sets, instead of doing 20 sets on one leg day, why not have 2 leg days and do 10 sets per leg day? Or why not have 3 days where you hit legs and then you can do, 6, and then 7 on one day? Would that be 20? I don't know. So my point is to divide it up throughout your week so that you can recover from the exercise, and that's a much more effective way of training. So to summarize those 3 principles, hopefully you're driving it into yourself. The first principle you need to hit is make sure that whenever you're training, you're pushing to failure or leaving 1 or 2 reps in the tank. No more than 2 reps in the tank. Otherwise, it's just a warm-up set. Second one, volume. You need to be doing 10 to 20 hard sets per muscle that you're trying to grow per week. And then you want to divide those sets so that you're training every muscle at least 2 days per week.
Perfect. And now the last way to ensure that you are building muscle, the last principle we want to talk about is choosing the right split to follow for you, and that one that you can actually follow. Every time we have a new client comes to us, most of the time, we ask them, how many days do you want to train per week? And most of the time, I know what they're about to say, Janos as well, is they're going to say 6 to 7 days.
Yep.
And then we question them back and always say, do you actually want to train 6 to 7 days because you think that's the only way you can get results? Or are you only saying that because you think that's the only way. You know what I mean?
Are you saying that because you think that's what you have to do
or
to
do you
build muscle?
actually want to train 6 to 7 days? Because I personally love training 5 days per week. I love it. I would rather train more days per week than not. However, I have the time. I have the environment to do that. I have the ability to be able to do that, and I'm consistent with that. So we want to talk about the 3 splits that we personally love to give to clients, that we personally love as well. But the main thing to focus on when choosing a training split, so how many days you're going to train per week, is making sure that you are actually able to abide by it and stay consistent. There's no point choosing a 6 to 7 day split if you can only get it done twice per week. Even if you're intense, remember, the way that programs are created by us and all coaches is we look at the math and go, okay, if you can train 7 days per week, we're going to spread out that volume, those sets over those 7 days. But now if you're only training 2 out of the 7, then we're not going to get all those sets in. We would rather you tell us, I can actually only get to the gym twice per week or 3 times, and then we can make those workouts and the sets fit all into that.
Yeah, the biggest mistake is sticking to a 6-day program, but only actually doing 3 days. Because then if we've divided 20 hard sets over the 6 days, and you only do 3, then you actually ended up halving the number that we've programmed for you.
Yeah, well, if I see
Whereas
my
if they
clients,
tell us, hey, I can only do 3 days or maybe 4, then we can at least create a program that is built for 3 days of consistent training with a bonus day if they have time to do it.
Yeah, if I see my clients over like 2 weeks not doing their 4 to 5 day program, I change it straight away. I'm like, no, you're obviously not able to get it done. We're doing a 3-day program. They're like, no, Mel, no, I can do it. I'm like, you obviously aren't able to right now, and that's okay. Let's just change it. So I think it's just about just being realistic with your lifestyle. And if you're a busy working mum or something like that, don't commit to 6 days unless you can.
Yeah, and it's about playing around with it a little bit. So any program will work if it went and it hit those principles that we just went over before. So if you forget them, go back and listen to them. But any of these programs, the reason they work is not because they're special, but it's because they've applied the principles that we talked about just before. So let's go through our favorite programs that we like to follow for 2 all the way up to 6 days per week. And
you start with the first one because I know you love this split.
Yeah. And now the other thing is that when you do train more frequently, like if you are doing a 5 or a 6 day program, the benefit is because you are training more throughout the week, you can have shorter workouts.
Less exercises.
Right?
I was just speaking to one of my clients who is doing really well. And at the stage where we're in a lean bulk right now, and she was like, Mel, like my workouts, like they used to be really long. She used to love long workouts. Yeah. She goes, they're just getting too long, especially for winter. Like I just don't want to do long workouts anymore. And I'm like, well, I think you're actually ready for this style that I actually do. And I only do 4 to 5 exercises per workout. And people look at that and go, what? Only 4? I'm like, yeah, but my intensity is so up there that with the 4, I leave this gym feeling knackered.
Yeah. And if you're training more days per week, you can spend less time in the gym per day.
Yeah, because your sets are spread out.
Whereas if you're only going to do a 2 or 3 day program, then for you that might be a good trade-off because it's like, oh, well, it's less days in the gym. But just know that because you're going to be doing more muscles in those workouts, they will be slightly longer than the person who's going to the gym to only train chest for that day. Yeah. Then, of course, it's going to be a shorter workout.
Yeah. You start with the first split because you like this one.
For anybody who can only do 2 to 3 days per week, the best split that I like to follow for that one is a full body program. And so what that means is that we're looking at each muscle and then we're basically doing around 3 to 4 sets per muscle in each of those workouts. So it would be doing a full body program where you train full body on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And if you could only do 2 days, then it might be a full body program on Monday and Friday. And what we're looking for is hitting that minimum part of the volume where you're doing that 10 sets that are pushing hard, pushing close to failure. And because we're doing a full body program, we don't want to be doing workouts with tons of exercises in them. So generally a full body program, you're going to be prioritizing the main movements of the body, or those compound exercises we're talking about, where you're using exercises that don't just train one muscle, but they train multiple muscles. So for example, you might do pull-ups because they train your back and your biceps and your forearms all in one exercise. Or you might do something like a bench press, where it's not just going to be training chest, but you're also going to be hitting the shoulders a little bit and also the triceps as well. So then this way, I'm not just doing single muscle exercises. Otherwise, I will have this very long list of exercises to do.
Yeah.
So that's my favorite program to do, because when I was doing my judo, where I was representing Australia in judo, I was training for my sport, like 4 to 5 days a week of judo training or fighting. I didn't have time to also be in the gym 5 to 6 days per week.
Yeah.
So what I would do is I would do a full body program where it's like, okay, that's my performance day, where I'm in the gym, building my strength, building my muscle mass. And then I would go to judo on the next day. But because I'm doing a full body program, I'm not throwing all of my legs onto one day, or I'm not doing a chest day where all my chest is on one day. I'm spreading all of those hard sets over 3 workouts throughout the week, so that every workout, I'm going in there and training my whole body, but I'm not walking away sore at all, because eventually your body gets used to it. And if you're only doing 3 sets per muscle in each of those sessions, you're not going to be sore, because it's like, I just did 3 sets of legs. I'm not going to be sore from that compared to doing an entire leg day.
Yeah, that's a great point. And it all comes down to what season of life you're in as well. And knowing that you actually can change back and forth between these splits. Like I know for myself, in the first trimester of my pregnancy, I went back to a 3 full body day split that I haven't done in years, but because I only had the capacity to train 2 to 3 times per week because of my fatigue, that's what I went to. But now second trimester up until now, I'm actually back to my 4 to 5 day split, which is the one I'm about to go into now, which is the upper lower split, which is where if you want to train between 4 to 6 days per week, then you split up your workouts into upper days and lower days. Now, we already touched on this a little bit, but what I love about the upper lower split is the fact that you can have shorter workouts with less exercises, because the sets are spread out and the volume is spread out over the entire week. So instead of trying to fit all my sets in 2 to 3 days, I can easily fit them into 4 to 6 days, which the kind of the consequence of having this split is you have to ensure that you actually are getting to the gym with that between that 4 to 6 days per week, depending on how many workouts you've put in. But you've just got to really ensure that you are pushing to that intensity. So I don't walk into my 4 to 6 exercises for those workouts and I just kind of do my warm-up sets and that's it. I'm pushing myself to failure. And because I'm only working on upper body or lower body in those workouts, I really strategically think about the weights that I want to use. That, okay, today's an upper body day. I'm really going to push this muscle group, etc. Like I really can focus on that. I also personally love an upper lower split because I like to train more days of the week than not training, because it keeps me in that athletic mindset of my healthiest self. Because I find if I do a 3-day split, that's still 4 days out of my week that I'm not in the gym training, and it easily can convince me to not want to do my healthy lifestyles. But that's only because for me, training is like the catalyst, the domino effect to all my other healthy habits. Doesn't mean this is for everyone. Like if I'm sure in the postpartum period when we have a child, I'll probably go back to a 3-day split because I won't have all the time in the world to train 6 days a week.
Or if you want to prioritize other stuff, like when we trained for our marathon, for example, if you're doing hybrid training, if you're doing a sport in addition to your strength training, then that's where you have those gaps in between where, number one, if you miss a workout, it's very easy to just do it the next day. And then number 2 is you have days off to be able to rest or do your running days or mobility days or your sport days. So you have time to do that in between. I love the upper lower program as well. Like right now, that's what I'm following. Yeah. And it's a really effective program too that can be done 4 days per week. So you have 2 days where you hit upper body, and then you hit lower body. Yeah. Then you could have a rest day where you go for a run or do something different. Then you could do upper body again, lower body again, and then that could be it for the week.
Well, do you know what
if you wanted more, you could do the double where you have 3 upper days and 3 lower days throughout the week.
Yes. What I'm currently loving that I'm doing is I'm doing a 4-day program. So 2 upper, 2 lower. That's my main core program. That's like the cake. But to sprinkle on top for my 5th day, I do a bit of extra arms. Whatever area of my body that I'm like, I want this to pop a little bit more, I do extra isolation exercises on the 5th day. just to kind of go, okay, that's an extra amount of sets per week on that particular muscle group that I want to get ahead a little bit more than other muscle groups right now. And it's kind of like not an easier day for me. I still push on those days, but it's more of a, okay, as long as I get those 4 days, I'm really happy. But if I'm having a really good week and I actually get that 5th day in, wow, that's a really good week as well.
Yeah. The other thing you can do is if you don't care about a certain body part as much with the upper lower split, then typically you can do a 5-day version. So what I'm following right now is I'm doing 3 upper body days and then I'm doing 2 lower body days. So Monday to Friday I'm training and then I'm having the entire weekend off. So I just go upper, lower, upper, lower, upper. So I have 3 upper days, 2 lower days. Mm-hmm. For females, they might do the opposite. They might have 3 lower days for the week and then they might have 2 upper body days. Now, it's not that you're not growing those other days. You're still hitting the 10 minimum sets per week on the muscles that you don't care about as much, but then you're able to go up to that 20 on the muscles you do care about a little bit more. So for example, for me, I want to care about my upper body a bit more. So I'm going to go more towards that 15 to 20 hard sets per week on my upper body, which is why I'm doing 3 upper body days. And then I've got my legs, which I'm not caring about as much at this stage in my life. And I'm just going to be doing the 2 leg days per week instead. Now, if you wanted to do the upper lower program as a 3-day program, you can also do that too. So if you are a man and you don't care about growing legs because you don't need them to be massive, it's actually inconvenient because they don't fit in your pants when you're getting suit pants, then you could actually do 2 upper days per week with 1 lower body day per week. So you could do an upper lower split for 3-day program where you do upper body to start the week, lower body on the Wednesday, upper body to finish the week on the Friday.
Some of my clients actually love doing, I like that point.
Or vice versa for
They
females.
do 1 day upper, 1 day lower, and then a full body for their 3rd day. So what's really fun about training is that you can mix and match things. It all comes down to the frequency and consistency of sticking to a program.
That's right. And it doesn't matter what days you do them. Ideally, spread it out so your body has the most time to recover between sessions. But the main thing is do your sessions by weekend. Mm-hmm. Like by the time you finish the week, you need to have done all of your sessions so that you've hit those principles of intensity. Push each muscle to within 2 reps of failure.
Yeah.
Volume. Make sure you're doing the 10 to 20 hard sets. If you skip sessions, you're missing those hard sets because you're missing a session worth of sets. And the frequency. Train each muscle at least 2 times per week.
Do you want to go into the last one?
Yeah, the last one, a lot of people like to follow this one too. I don't personally like it that much.
Either do I.
It's a push-pull leg type program. So what that means is that on Monday, you're doing all of your pushing muscles. Mm-hmm. So think chest, shoulders, triceps. Then Tuesday, while your chest and shoulders and triceps are resting, you're going to hit your pulling muscles, which is your back and your biceps. And then Wednesday, you'll hit your legs, which will be all of your leg muscles, your lower body. And then you then repeat it again. So then you go back to pushing again, back to pulling again, and then back to legs again. So it's a 6-day program.
You just have to make sure you're able to stick to that though. Some people don't.
Because this is where it goes wrong. If somebody, for some reason, missed a workout because something happened and they missed their second push day workout for that week, then they're missing the volume. They're not going to hit the right volume they need to grow the chest as effective as a program where you can move the days around.
Yeah.
Because if you're already committing every single day to having a program of its own, then there's no wiggle room for you to move a day and just, make up a day for it. So I find people who often do push-pull leg style programs, at least in my experience, if they're not an influencer who trains in the gym and their job is literally recording themselves working out, they often miss days and therefore they don't get the same results as somebody who's doing 3 days a week or even 4 days a week because the person who's doing 3-day or 4-day program actually completes their workouts. And so it seems weird that a 3 or 4-day program can get better results than a 6-day program. But that's why we were saying that the most important thing when picking the type of program to follow is how many can you consistently do per week.
Love that point. I have nothing to add.
Nothing to add. So guys, that's the main stuff for muscle growth. Obviously, there's a lot more that goes into it. And to avoid injuries and things like that, there is ways that me and Mel sequence our programs where, again, you can start to push to the upper end of that volume by doing 20 hard sets for a specific muscle, but you can't do it indefinitely. So then that's where after a program phase of doing 6, maybe even 12 weeks of hitting like the higher end of that volume of like 20 hard sets close to failure, eventually your joints, your shoulders might be starting to feel it a little bit. Mm-hmm. And that's where you'll need to do a bit of a deload, which doesn't mean you have to train easy. It just means that you might reduce the volume back to the 10 hard sets per week on the shoulders. and then you might ramp up another part of your body to be in that 20.
Yeah.
So it's not quite as simple as, oh, I want maximal results, I'm going to go for 20. Because remember, when I'm saying 10 to 20 sets per week is what's going to grow your body, as long as they're hard sets, it doesn't mean 10 doesn't work. 10 still grows. It's just going to grow a little bit less. Okay.
Yes.
It's still going to grow. So even when you deload the muscle and you back it down to that 10 hard sets per week, you're still going to be growing muscle. Or if you're in a busy stage of your life and you can't have time to train that often, then pick a program that suits the number of days you can do, that can still get the 10 hard sets per week on the muscles you want to grow, and make sure that you're not slacking in your intensity. Like remember, warm-up sets don't build muscle. So if you're not pushing to within 1 to 2 reps of failure, so ideally just push to failure, but eventually once you get good at knowing what failure feels like, you can start leaving 1 or 2 reps in the tank so you don't have to fail all the time. But as a general rule for all of my clients, I tell them to always take the last set to failure because you're about to change exercises anyway. So if I'm doing my last set of my chest, then I want to take that set to failure to see how close I was to failure. So if I was doing 10 reps thinking I had 1 or 2 in the tank, then on that last set, when I go to failure, hopefully I can only do 12, which means that I did have 2 in the tank. Where if that last set you go to failure and you get 20, then that's not a good sign because it means that I was stopping at 10, but really I could have done 20. So I actually had 10 reps in the tank, not 1 or 2.
Yeah. Now, if you want to learn how to do this and you feel a bit overwhelmed about how to build muscle still, we have just launched our new winter challenge that is starting on Monday, August 10th. It's going up until October 4th, I'm pretty sure. And it's an 8-week challenge that this is a challenge where like we don't personally believe where it's in challenges where it's like, get these results in 8 weeks and then your whole life is changed forever. What's great about a challenge though is it gives your brain a deadline and a kind of goal to work towards for a significant amount of time. And then what we do differently with our clients, so in comparison to other programs, is we teach them how to maintain it after. And that's the biggest part is a lot of people right now are struggling in winter to stay on track. They are struggling to get motivated again and they're waiting for spring and summer to come back around to get motivated and start working towards their goals again. Where this challenge in the past has helped so many of our clients who are still with us today after the challenge because they loved it so much, because they're learning now that they don't always have to be in a deficit and lose weight. They're learning how to maintain the weight that they've lost and go through seasons of that. So if you feel like, you wrote this at the start of the year, you're like, oh, I just want to lose weight, or I want to feel really good, I want to go into a certain event this year at the end of the year feeling my best self, then we can't recommend this enough. You will work one-on-one with us. We only have limited spots because we work with our clients one-on-one. For 8 weeks, you get a custom program. We make sure you're reaching all of these principles that we've talked about today. We ensure that your protein is on point. We make sure your nutrition's on point. We make sure you are checked in weekly with your coach just to ensure that we can make changes along the way to ensure that you're actually going to get the results by the end of 8 weeks and also have a game plan leaving the challenge as well.
Yeah. And if you're listening to this today and you're a little bit overwhelmed with like the world of training, because there is a lot that goes into building effective training programs. So if you've been training for a while and you haven't been seeing the results that you wanted, then this is where just getting a coach, somebody who is responsible for creating programs that work to make sure that you get results and, will hold you accountable in it. And if we notice, me or Mel notice that you're not hitting the program that we've created for you, that's where we change it to make sure that we're adapting the science to you so that we're not trying to force you into doing a 6-day program when you can't stick to it. But we're like, okay, well, with the wealth of science that we know about how we can get people to grow muscle, lose weight in the time period they have, then we're going to adapt that to you. So if you want to get rid of all of the guesswork of what we've talked about today, the best way to shortcut yourself to results is to just hire a coach, have it all done for you. So all you need to do is have confidence in the plan, go into the gym and know exactly what you need to do to get results. And then you just leave all the science to us.
I agree. And if you want to apply or inquire with us, you can comment down below on this podcast if you don't have social media. But if you do, jump over to social media, or actually the link will be down below. I'm just going to put the link below. So link will be below this podcast or YouTube video. But also if you go to our social media, the link is in our bio as well. Inquire with us. Let's jump on a call. Let's chat about your goals and let's see if we're a right fit for each other.
Well, I think that everyone needs to go out and do something.
They need to live the pro
body lifestyle.
Yes.
Yeah, we need to work on that.
We're going to get better at that. Bye, guys.
See ya.